Hello, sir. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back for yet another session with me today, an IB educator with a decade of experience in an IB curriculum. I'm Ms. Vichitra, and today's session is an extension of what we did in the previous session, in the last week's session. So last week I explained about lesson planning and why of the lesson planning, so that it could be useful for all of us, be teachers, right? So there were very great takeaways from the session, and today also I would like to bring great learning for all of you. um, this is out of my experience, what I have learned. I would like to share and support you all for that. So uh, before we could step onto the presentation, I would like to share a small a s- story or a real life scenario. All right. There was a new science teacher, and she planned a fun Friday activity. And the activity was making paper airplanes. So she gave the students paper and said, make the best plane you can. The class had great time folding and throwing planes. But the room became noisy and the activity stretched until the bell. At the end, one student asked, what was this lesson about? The teacher realized she hadn't told them the goal, whether it was about aerodynamics, or it was about measurement, or it was about designing, or teamwork. She wanted them to actually learn about the flight principles, but the students thought it was just their free time. Without a clear objective, the lesson lost its learning focus, and the students left without the intended knowledge. Have we, as teachers, ever landed up in this kind of a scenario? I would like to hear from all of you. Yeah? Please unmute yourself. Has anyone had an experience like this? That you have planned, you went, you did something, but
Can I
at the
say?
end,
Can I?
yeah?
Well, in fact, I did create the objectives, but then again, I had not clarified this thing. I didn't say it to my students. And after the lesson, my students asked me, what was this for? Why did you conduct this activity?
Ah, yes,
So then I realized I wish I had told them. But then again, there was also another thing that came to my mind. If I had told them what the objective was, perhaps the students wouldn't have been engaged into it, or they wouldn't have enjoyed the activity. So,
absolutely.
but I knew it. And then I told them that this was the reason I had conducted that particular activity.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yes? Any other reflection on this? There are about 15 participants. Teachers, please unmute yourself, and one of you can respond, and then we'll move ahead. Okay, let me just tell you that I cannot see the chat. Therefore, it will be good if you can unmute yourself and share. All right. Let's make this a little interactive, teachers. So please help me out with this. All right. So it did happen with me. And when I landed up in a class, my planning was great. I planned very well for the session. I did the activity, and it did happen with me that by the end, though they were able to connect the lesson, connect with what's going on with the lesson, but then they were not clear of their goal. Why were we doing this? Right? Though the activity was very clear, they did it very well, but still we were unable to reach the goal. So without a clear stated learning objective, even the most exciting lessons can miss its target, and the target is educational target, right? So if we have to create great learning for children, impactful learning for children, meaningful for children, then we have to actually clearly state these learning objectives, right? So welcome you all for this session. Today's objective, I would really want to show the objective that is put up on the presentation. I'll just share my screen. All right, I'm sure you're able to see this. Yeah, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Deepa. So, my introduction I'm done with, and we come to the next slide. This is the topic for the day, and that is creating learning objectives. So the learning outcome, or my learning objective for this is for today's session is this: by the end of the session, participating teachers will be able to write smart learning objectives using the SMART framework explained in the session, producing at least 2 objectives that meet all 5 SMART criteria. Now, can you tell me, you all are teachers and you all keep writing learning objectives, targets for your classes, right? For your lessons, what you take in. How different is this learning objective, what you see on the slide today, with the learning objective which you must have written for any of the topic or a subtopic for your class? What are the differences? There are so many. What are the differences? What is the difference? You can see at least one. You can name it.
I'd be glad if you could zoom it. Okay, fine.
Can you see it?
Yes.
One difference. Common differences, you can see there's smart, smart, smart. Okay, what is that smart? We will be getting to know further. But the statement, if you read the statement, do you see something else which is very different from, or you can make out that, okay, I've used this in the framework, in the sentence?
I think
SMART framework
Okay,
that
you're using
explained in the session.
explained in the
Uh,
session.
Yeah, ma'am, it might be a Bloom's taxonomy that 5 creative ideas may be cleared according to, as per that we have to design a smart. We learn how to design a smart learning objective.
Wonderful, Deepa. Wonderful. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Anyone else? All right. So we go with this, right? SMART framework is actually one of the frameworks. Okay, there are many, but one of the frameworks which will help you to give an insight into how to create your learning objectives. Okay, so today I'm going to show you how a learning objectives can be made or converted to a SMART objective. Okay, so in this session, I've actually used SMART framework to design my learning objective. So my learning objective for this particular session is that you all should be able to write SMART learning objectives using this SMART framework explained in this session now, producing at least 2 objectives that meet all 5 SMART criteria, right? So when I'm while I'm reading out, I'm stressing on few words, right? Like I said, SMART, you should be able to write and at least 2 and should be able to meet 5, right? So these are the words which are catchy. These are the words which are giving me a focus. These are the words which are telling me, yes, I have attained this, right? So today let's look at the SMART framework, and hereafter I'm very sure that when you use the SMART framework, you will see drastic change in your planning and in your implementation in the classroom. And your students will be absolutely clear. And once that when students are clear with what they are learning, then the class is an achieved class, right? We say that, okay, I've accomplished what I wanted to, right? So let's look at this. Okay, so now learning objectives. There are 2 types of learning objectives. Okay, one which we write as general learning objective, okay, where it's a broad goal. Okay, and the other one is a specific. So being very specific. Now, how to get specific to that learning objective? So if you see, we've just seen that paper plane activity, right? So in that paper plane activity, you can see that, the teacher has told them that you have to make a paper plane, right? Using this paper. That's it. So why do you think students were unclear with what teacher exactly wanted to do in the classroom? Yeah.
The purpose of paper planes could be many and not specific.
Absolutely, Rekha ma'am. Thank you. Yes, the purpose of, that particular activity or making a paper plane could have been many. Yes. So that it was like a vague objective, correct? For example, if we have to say, let's take an example. Okay, students will understand photosynthesis. So when I say students will understand photosynthesis, is it a vague objective or a specific objective? Is it a general one or a specific one?
General one.
It's general.
It's a general one, right? Why do you think it's a general one?
Ma'am, because there is nothing details has been mentioned, only a specific general information is given, what exactly the students are going to learn from it.
Absolutely, yes. So
It is not
students
how execution, the way it is not being mentioned over there.
mentioned, absolutely, yes. So students will understand photosynthesis. Now, understand is again a vague, quite an abstract word, right? How will I know whether the student has understood this particular concept of photosynthesis? Okay, so that's something really difficult for a teacher to measure, for a teacher to get it. Therefore, let's dive into this particular way of doing it. It's a framework. We can all use it, and we can all create or transform our objectives, what we have been writing using this framework. So first is specific framework. All right. So if you have to look at specific framework, specific objective, it has to be well defined to the students and observable to the teachers. Teachers should be able to observe the changes that are taking place in order to measure. So who, what, when, where, why, you all know these 5 W's, right? So if we have to look at it, these specific, the way of doing or your writing an objective should be very specific to, I should say, a student-centric Okay, so that this observable changes in students can be observed by us. Okay, the changes in students' learning can be observed by us and can be measured by us. Therefore comes the second one, measurable. Measurable, we should be able to evaluate it, whether what we want to teach or what we want to take it to class, have the students attained it, reached it, or to that, whatever you must have had a bar for it. So have they reached, have they attained, or have they understood, right? They got it or no. So how are you going to measure it? Measurable, it has to be a measurable one. Your learning objective should be an achievable one, not something very flashy, not something very flowery, right? Students academically should be ready for that objective. Can it be attained? Should be our question. Then relevant. Is it relevant for what we are currently doing in our classroom? Okay. Is it related? Is it relating to a bigger idea? Last week I have told you about the concepts, right? So is it attained? Is it related to that particular context, or is it related to the concept we are doing? So it's preparing for a student for the standardized testing. That could be a summative test after your teaching, or it could be a formative while you're doing, right? So it should be a relevant one. Your objective has to be a relevant one. Then time bound. Time bound is, it should be, your objective should be such that it is, you get enough time to complete it within a time frame, right? Not that you're going on with one objective for, weeks and weeks. So we all know how difficult it is. So it has to be time bound so that we attain it for that particular assigned or a designated time, right? So assigned date for completion has to be there when you're mentioning a objective. Okay, right. Let's now clearly get to understand each of it. Okay, looking at this. So whatever objectives we are going to frame, it should be student-centered, right? And it should be specific learning targets for students, because the more you scaffold the learning objective, your broad learning objective, your general learning objective, that will become your learning targets for student. It's like a milestone. Okay, so you have to show them the pathway, like these, first attend this, then do this, then do this, then do this, right? And very specific, small, short, so that the students are also very clear with what they are doing, right? So everything that they spend, the minutes and the hours they spend with you should be worth it for them. All right. So let's look at one example. Let's look at this learning objective. Yeah. Students will hear a lecture on graphing linear equations. Do you think this is student centric? If yes, why? If no, why?
I don't think so. It's a student centric.
Mhm.
It's just student are not an active because it's just a lecture for them to listen at, and we like at the end we can't even measure how much they have listened or not. So it's not basically student centric.
Absolutely, Rasika ma'am, you have nailed it here, right? So students will hear a lecture. They are passive learners. They are just sitting and listening to a lecture given by the teacher, right? So they are not active learners here, correct? Therefore, if we are looking at learning objectives should be student-centric, then this somewhere is not catering to that, is aligning with what we have just seen, right? So how can we make it more specific? How can we make it student-centric? Let's see this. After observing a lecture or a demonstration, students will graph linear equation. Now tell me, is it the student-centric one?
Yes, this is
Yes.
student centric because they are involved in graphing it, and whether they have achieved. So we can observe that from the graph that they have made.
Absolutely, yes. So graphing, now they are involving themselves. Student engagement is there. They are actually understanding what the teacher has done, right? They have observed how the teacher has done, and they've learned it and they have reproduced it. So the students will graph linear equations. So graph is one of the tools which will tell us whether we teachers, whether the student has understood that concept or right, and it's a measurable one. So let's look at another example. So this is more specific one. Okay, now a student-centric one. Now let's go to what a specific one should. Specific should state exactly what is to be accomplished. So in your learning objective, you should be mentioning what you want to accomplish. What, you have to state very, very clearly in your objective what you want to accomplish by the end of your topic. Okay, let's look at the example. Students will take notes from a PowerPoint lecture about the stock market crash of 1929. Is this a specific one? Specific means what you want to accomplish by the end of the topic.
I personally feel specific in terms of just what we want, like taking notes. But whether the student have understood or not, then I feel it is not clear from this. It's just
Clear here.
it's just a point of taking notes. But my whatever I want to achieve, like that's not accomplished here.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
also like, why are they taking notes?
Yes. Why are they taking notes? Correct.
What is
And
the
also,
learning objective in taking
not
notes as well?
also, they will also not take
You
notes
can't-
also.
Yeah,
They
you
may
can't
not take
measure
notes.
that.
True.
It's not scalable.
Yes. It's not scalable. Correct. Thank you so much. So students will take notes. Now, take notes is not ultimately our idea of doing this particular topic. Am I right? They can
Yes,
take
ma'am.
notes. Yeah, that's not the
They
objective
can
of
take, they may not take also. We are
they
not.
may not take also. Yes. So how can we now convert it to be a very specific one? By the end of the lesson, students will create a graphic organizer showing causes and effects of the stock market crash of 1929. Is it now making sense?
Yes.
Right? So writing notes, taking down notes and putting it in the form of a organizer, organizing whatever they have learned, okay, using a graphic organizer is really going to enhance their understanding, is going to help them develop that knowledge and understanding about the topic, right? So they are different. Also, they are putting it under causes and under effects. So they are actually segregating whatever, organizing the information they have get from a lecture. So this could go as a specific one. Let's look at the next one, which is measurable. What is measurable? It must define acceptable levels of learning, right? So we all know, right, as teachers, that in our classrooms we have students with different learning styles, students with different cultural backgrounds, students with different learning abilities, correct? So in order to cater to them, how do you set a level for them? Okay, so defining acceptable levels of learning for the student is very important so that you can measure it, right? So let's look at this example. Yeah. Students will discover diversity in a meadow by coming face to face with it. Any thoughts on this? Measurable.
There is nothing that can be measured in that.
Absolutely. Discover. How will you measure discover? Right? Students will discover diversity in a meadow by coming face to face with it. It's too vague, cannot be measured. Now look at, after a working field trip, students will describe at least 12 plant species and 12 animal species found in the meadow. What do you think about this?
Ma'am, this is measurable because it is given a specific number and the specific thing which they have to describe or present.
Absolutely, yes, right? So students will be describing at least 12 plant species, right? At
And
least, yeah,
yeah, like as our objective is very measurable, like 12. If a student writes just three of them, three plant species, so we can like measure at what level he has understood or that. If a student is able to write like 12 or maybe more than 12, then we can know the understanding or measure the level the student is at.
absolutely, Rasika ma'am. So these are actually helping you to get the achievement levels of the student, right? Where do they stand? Are they still novice? Are they at the beginning stage? Are they still need to be, attend to? So what is it like? Where do they stand and how much of support you need to give them? Right? That can be measurable. This measurable objective will help you to redesign your planning and your support for the students. Okay, let's go to the next one. As per the SMART, R is relevant. So focus on content that is interesting and necessary. Right? Relevant means nowadays we see there are a lot of topics which are just introduced. But is there any relevance for the students to know this? Are they going to use it? Okay, so that has to be really thought about by the teacher so that they frame proper learning objectives based on this. Let's look at this objective. Students will get a lesson on using internet sources.
There is nothing relevant about the information which is mentioned on the video.
Yeah,
So it's just information they may get or may not get.
It's vague actually.
it's again a vague one. True. Now, if you look at this, during class, students will use the internet to locate 5 reliable sources of information about Picasso.
Yes, ma'am, it has a specific information and from the source of information and what they have to do search about it.
Yeah,
So
this is quite relevant, correct? Students
yes,
will use the internet, quite relevant to them, to locate 5 reliable sources. Okay, it's important for them to know sources of information which are really reliable, right? Which are authentic about a topic that they are doing. Okay, so this is how you design a relevant learning objective.
Uh,
And the last one,
Yeah, I would just like to add on to this relevant. If we also go with a local context, like something, a problem which is related locally, then the students will able to relate it. And then again, it will be very relevant to what they will be like planning or coming out with.
absolutely. So last week we have done this session on lesson planning. Why? So there we have included contextual learning. So, contextual learning, teaching and learning. This will help you to set the context for the students, right? Which is happening around the surrounding. So local and moving ahead to a global context is definitely going to, international mindedness was one of them. Then connections with the disciplines, other disciplines, interdisciplinary. So all this we have seen, and so is your setting or writing your learning objective. If you mention it with the context, they'll be able to relate it. Thank you, Rasika ma'am, once again. Right? They'll be able to relate to the context, what they are doing. Okay. Now let's look at the last one, which is time bound. They should have specific ending point for assessment. Okay. Now please remember formative assessment, summative assessment. Ending point for assessment would go with the summative assessment. because standardized tests are definitely useful and should be there in any teaching learning process. Okay, so look at this example. Students will evaluate the impact of human activity on specific watersheds. What do you feel about it?
Students, how self-evaluation can be done, because we are not sure about whether they have learned the specific concept or not. And self-evaluation, like again,
Evaluation
is not
can
very,
take any amount of time.
yeah, and it doesn't have a
Yeah,
time
right.
limit also.
Yes, there's no time limit, right? Students will evaluate. Okay, so evaluate means they're actually thinking about the strengths and the challenges or the weaknesses, right? About the impact of human activity. But is there any time limit to this? Let's see how we can move it to a time. Yes, time bound. At the end of the experiment, students will evaluate the impact of human activity on specific watersheds. So here, to evaluate the impact, time limit is there, right? Which is at the end of the experiment. By the end of this investigation, they should be able to study or evaluate the particular impact of your activity, human activity. Correct? So, the time bound, your learning objective should mention time bound. Okay? So, this was the SMART framework. Now you can like revisit your learning learning objectives, whatever you have written for your unit, the current unit which you're taking to your class. So you can just try and reframe using the SMART framework. This will really help you to get focused objectives for your class, goals for your students, so that it can become meaningful and impactful for your students. Right. Now, how do you think we have created these using the SMART framework? What have we used? What verbs should be used? So, Deepa, I think ma'am has shared just now that Bloom's taxonomy. How many of you have heard this? This is a buzzword. We all know about it. Is there anybody in this session today who do not know about Bloom's taxonomy? None, right? So, what exactly Bloom's have done? He has come up with the original version was this. Okay, he has put all the levels of their learning and understanding here, and he has the latest one is the new version where the levels are seen. So, if we want our students to move from remembering, understanding to a creating level, then our learning targets for the students have to be very, very specific. If you as a teacher wish to see your student learning and attaining the learning objective that you have set and coming with the learning outcome, you want to see the great learning outcomes in your students through your lesson, then you must try SMART framework for framing your learning objectives. Okay, this is one of the framework. Again, I'm telling you, there's another one which I would like to do as the next session, but this is great. Okay, remembering to creating level and creating level. So if you look at the skills also, remembering is recall. Okay, understanding, then applying the knowledge. So look at the skills, the level of skills, it's increasing. The attainment of skills is definitely of a higher level, right? And I'm repeating 4 21st century skills. Remember in our last session, we did 4 21st century skills, right? Critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration, communication, 4 C's. So you'll be able to see children moving from, at each level, they'll be improvising or they will be enhancing their skills, development skills. So Bloom's taxonomy come up with some words. Okay, they are the verbs. And verbs in well-constructed learning objectives. So these verbs, if you use it in framing your learning objectives, it will be really helpful for you to, write a thorough learning objective, which will be very definite and very focused learning target for your students. Okay, and here are a few words. If you see, these are the appropriate words. And student products are also, this is a verb wheel, okay, based on Bloom's taxonomy. And you can see there are different levels, okay, which we call as domains. So the Bloom domains are given in the purple region, and you have appropriate verbs which you can take it and use it in the while you're writing your the learning objective, okay, using a SMART framework. And finally, these are the outer circle, okay, in the concentric circles. If you see the outer one, they are the student products. It means that those could go as your learning outcomes. Most of them get confused with learning objectives and learning outcome. Okay, it's like you're planning for a trip, a holiday trip. So the destination plan is your learning objective, and you're reaching the your destination is your learning outcome. Okay, so if you can see the outer circle, you will find, like, I'll read this one, okay, the top. So here you can see analogy, graphing, speaking, collage, drama, creating a poster, summary, right? So for comprehension, if your learning objective is describe, the student will be able to describe, okay? And those measurable objectives, if you're giving, then you can use these as students' products. The student can draw a diagram, okay? And label and annotate at least 2 of the structures and functions given of the structures of the digestive system. All right, so you can pick words from here. This is a very useful verb wheel which we can use to create our learning objectives. All right, so now let's see how we can use them. One of the examples I've given, yeah. At the end of the lesson, students will compare urban and agrarian occupations in Texas using a variety of sources. Okay, here we have used compare. Okay, going back to the verb wheel. Yes, compare. Now, where can you see compare here? Or can you see compare anywhere here? Which of the domains of the Bloom's taxonomy you can relate it to?
Analysis.
Analysis. Absolutely. Compare is the analysis domain of the Bloom's taxonomy. Here it is, right? So to compare, what can you do with the student? What could be the end product? What tool can you use to measure it? You can either ask them to create a graph, ask them to create a model, right? Ask them to take a survey, okay? Ask them to create a report or a questionnaire, right? They have to analyze whatever data they have in front of them and then come up comparing the data, right? So this is how you can use it. Let's see another example.
And they can also make a table.
They can create a table, absolutely, in a tabular format. Why not? Yes. At the end of the unit, students will design a display that presents the causes, events, and consequences of French Revolution. Okay. Now here, design is again a verb, right? What is it? It's an appropriate verb. Okay. Can you look at design here in this?
Synthesis.
Synthesis. Yes. Okay. Design is here. Synthesis. And what could be the designing? So what could be the product? What could be the tool? So students, you can use, or you can give a choice to the students to use. Okay. They can create a poem. They can write an article. They can create a cartoon strip. Okay. They can create a report. They can make a song, create a song, come with a game. Okay. So you can, use these verbs and create your thing. Yeah. Here. Few examples to understand whether they are appropriate and the learning target is clear for the student. At the end of the lesson, students will explain 2 causes of the civil war. Can you see SMART framework here? I'm so sorry. Yes. Yeah. Can you see SMART framework used
Yes.
in this learning?
So if we have to break down, so specific, I would say causes. So we are talking about the specific causes.
Absolutely.
M was for measurable. Again, we are saying 2 causes. So maybe we are able to measure whether the student is giving 2. And A was for
Achievable,
SMA
attainable.
Ma'am,
achievable.
it is time bound also. At the end of the session,
Yeah.
time bound it is. Again, it is very specific also. Okay, you have
Right?
to explain the causes of the civil war. Relevant also.
Yes.
Explain.
Well, absolutely. Yes. And is it result oriented?
Yes, ma'am.
Time bound, because you can like measure, right? So it's result oriented. It's 2 causes. Let's look at another example. Yeah. Yes. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, again, it is being using like smart model because time bound is there, specific thing is there, and 1 page, so we are able to like measure it in that sense. Yeah.
Right. 1 day. Okay. Critic of 1 day in Vietnam War. Again, it's attainable. Okay. We're not saying write the whole process, all thing, whatever has happened. Then in a diary, right? Vietnam War soldiers' diary. So they have to look at what exactly happened during that particular day, 1 day. Then you can see critic. Yeah. So they should know that it's not broad. What should I focus on? Should I focus on the character? Should I focus on the analysis of it? So what is it? So it's clearly mentioned critic of 1 day. Then by the end of the lesson, again, it is time bound. Okay. And it's relevant because it's a Vietnam War which they were studying. Okay. Another example. Science example. Time bound after observing an experiment. That's after at the end of the investigation, after conducting the experiment. Then you have students will hypothesize. So hypothesize is again, it's a specific one. Whatever the student feel, what is the prediction, the student will come up with that prediction. And then it's measurable because they're writing their own hypothesis. And then the atomic reason, right? So it's attainable. They know after doing this experiment, this is what has happened. Okay, it is result oriented again. Great. And the last example. Yeah, it's a maths example. Anyone?
Yes, ma'am. Can I?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, this is about identification of different geometrical figures by observing relatively to the objects around the kids, Like we even tell them, no, in the classroom, what do you observe? What are the objects around you on your desks? So you can find out the different geometrical shapes by relating it to real life examples.
Yes, correct. So they're applying what they have learned here. Correct? So they're
Absolutely, yes.
observing. Yeah, they're
Yes.
observing various objects and then they are drawing. So they're applying their understanding, and which is very specific in attainable, right? To draw a triangle, a square, rectangle, and a circle. And it's properly a time bound one because they have to first observe and then they have to do it. All right. So here I close the PPT. But before leaving, I would like to suggest this wonderful book by Anne Reeves, where great teaching begins. This is really going to be helpful if you want to improvise or want to enhance your understanding about what students think and their learning and lesson planning. This is a great book for which will motivate each one of us, and all the resources which I referred to create this presentation are these. You can please go through. If you wish to have this presentation, the recording will be available, so you can go through once again. Next week I really would like to bring another model which is called the ABCD model. I don't know how many of you have heard of ABCD model. This is what I've learned in one of my teach the trainer sessions, so it's really great. I would like to bring it's again a very specific one with quite wonderful, measurable learning objectives and learning targets for your students, right? So this was the video that I referred to. They have given wonderful, what do I say, examples. And finally, thank you so much. I've created this PPT using Slides Go, and I would now like to have small reflection from your end. Yes.
Ma'am, good evening. Ma'am,
Good
it's
evening.
always, it is always great to attend your sessions, ma'am. It is so informative and it is very, very, though today is Raksha Bandhan, so ma'am, happy Raksha Bandhan to you also. But still, I take a time because it was your session, ma'am. So I thought like ma'am sessions are very informative, very learning, ma'am. So I don't want to miss your session. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge with us. It's really
Thank you, Deepa.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Deepa, and happy Raksha Bandhan to all of you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
ma'am.
for making this session by attending, with your presence here on this wonderful day. I understand all brothers must be waiting and all relatives must be waiting, but still, I really wanted to make it, worthy for you all to attend. So I hope I've reached that learning target of mine. Thank you so much once again. Yeah, anybody else could give a
No,
small
ma'am,
reflection.
thanks to you because you've been taking out time and making such a wonderful sessions for us, ma'am. It's very
Oh, my
informative and
pleasure.
very learning also.
Thank you, Deepa, ma'am. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I
Yes.
missed your last week's session. So would it be available on YouTube? Yes?
Certainly. Yes.
Okay.
Certainly, yes. Yeah. On Sir's channel, it is available. You can ask, or you can just connect with Sir maybe, or with me.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if
think
you're
he
on the
posts
group.
them after maybe he
Yes,
posts, I
yes,
think,
Sir
after the
does
session.
that.
So I will
Yeah.
scroll through the WhatsApp group and I'll check.
Sure,
Because
sure.
attending today, I realized that I wish I had attended your last times. I don't know how I missed it, whatever. But then I'll go through that too. Okay.
No worries. No worries. Thank
And
you so much.
very related examples. I'm a maths and science teacher, so a number of examples I'm sure I'm going to share with my colleagues too at school. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe indeed it was a wonderful session. I can see participants, coming up with wonderful feedback. Congratulations, Vichitra ma'am. And
Thank you, sir.
dear participants, thank you so much for joining. We are hoping to have you all in the upcoming sessions as well.